Got a submission here from Blackjohnson, who is looking for that locked-in feel. And what you say here is interesting. Uh, your D term is really low, so fine. That's good. It's good when you're tuning to start with a very low D term and get your P and your I pretty close to correct before you then raise the D term and sort of finalize where that needs to be. So that's a great place for it to be. Don't worry about that. You should be able to get a really good tune with just P and then D is the final sort of fine tune, if you will. So you say when you increase P term on roll and pitch, the peaks are all followed by spikes, whereas currently the peaks seem quite smooth. If you're telling me that you don't have a locked in feel, and then you say this sentence, it makes me think that you're a little too afraid of your P term activity. Now, there was a time where darn near every, maybe not every, where lots of logs that I saw had way too high a P term. People were like turning their P term up like crazy. The guideline was look for oscillations and then just turn it down until the oscillations barely disappear. And people were ending up with way too high a P term. They're going crazy, and there were all these oscillations all over the place. That has changed, I think, and some of that may be due to the fact that Betaflight does a much better job of handling the P term than it used to, and therefore you're able to run closer to the edge on your P gains without inducing oscillations. I want to see, when I look at the P term, I want to see it moving. I want to see it active. I want to see it surging. I sometimes say, occasionally it may break over into actual oscillations, but an active P term is what I want. I don't want to see it laying around. Go back and watch some of the previous videos I posted where I analyze, where people are just asking for general tuning advice, and I analyze their P terms largely and see, and look at some of my recent posts that I made. Search my channel for Blackbox log analysis, Joshua Bardwell. You'll see posts I've made. I made some recently showing what I think is a pretty close to correct P term, and you'll see what I'm looking for. Let's take a look at your logs and see if I'm right about that. So here I've got your roll pulled up, and if we look, now granted, we're not seeing a lot of throttle pumps here, but if we look here, as you raise your throttle, what's your P line doing? It's hardly doing anything. Here you are at full throttle, and it is just barely doing anything. It's just loping along. So this is it. This is your. I feel like your P gain is too low. Okay. Now, granted, you're not doing a lot. You just did a sort of a punch, and you're blipping around a little bit, But we're not asking a lot of it. But notice that almost this whole flight, the P term is, oh, now it's finally off the line, right? It's finally off the zero axis. It's doing anything at all. But at no point do we see the surging, sort of cresting waves, the rolling waves look that tells you that it's really working, right? You really want it to be revving. You don't want it to be idling. That's another good way of putting it. I'm going to try and remember that. You want your P term revving. You don't want it idling. And this P term is just loping along. So it feels like your P gain is too low here. And that would contribute to a not locked in feeling. If we look at pitch, we see, hang on one second. There we go. If we look at pitch, I'll try and find the higher throttle points. Same thing. Basically smooth lines. This is too smooth. Okay, you've gone out the other end. You've gone from get rid of the oscillations to you've turned it down to the point where it's just not doing anything. Okay, so that's why you don't have a locked in feel. Your P gains are too low. Okay, there you go. Now I can see that your D gains are also almost non-existent by the fact that the D line is not doing anything. That's fine. Get your P gains close before you even think about raising your D gains. Unfortunately, I tried to open your RTF file with your config in it, and I don't know why, but it was just blank when I opened it in Word, so I can't look at what your actual values are. But yeah, they're too low. Your P gains are too low is the takeaway. Look at yaw here. It should be higher. I agree. So what happens? Why isn't it higher? Should be heaps higher, but the lines become very thick. So I don't know, because like if we look at your gyros, what do your gyros look like? Nah, they're super thin, right? I think you can definitely afford to raise your P gain on pitch and roll. Definitely on pitch and roll, and maybe a little bit on yaw too. Yaw's a little more sensitive, so don't push it. Get pitch and roll close, and then maybe bring yaw up a little bit. All right, well, hope that's helpful. Happy flying.